Hello friends, welcome again to Theory Wise. Today we are going to discuss William Shakespeare's sonnet number 18, Shall I Compare Thee to a Summer's Day? It is purely a critical analysis of the sonnet, and I'll try to focus on the important points regarding the sonnet. Before entering the discussion, I would like to request you all to like my video, to share my video, and please subscribe my channel so that we can grow together. Thank you. Now, what is a sonnet? Under the formal definition, the sonnet is a 14-line poem, usually written in pentameter verse. The 14-line sonnet can be divided into two sorts: the Italian or Petrarchan on the one hand and the Shakespearean on the other. The Italian poet Petrarch did not invent the Petrarchan form. It was used earlier by Dante and his circle, but Petrarch's use of this form of sonnet to celebrate his beloved Laura made it widely known, and it was much imitated, notably in France, by Rosa and Du Bellay. The Petrarchan sonnet is composed of an octave, an initial passage of 8 lines rhyming ABBA, ABBA, followed by a sestet, 6 lines requiring only that each line have a rhyming mate. In addition to the separation of octave form sestet by rhyme scheme, there is almost invariably a subtle but dramatic shift, a change of tone or point of view. On the other hand, the Shakespearean sonnet too is named after its most famous practitioner, but as a form it was already firmly established and was used by Shakespeare's predecessors and contemporaries including Spenser, Surrey, Sidney, Fletcher, Michael Drayton, Samuel Daniel, Thomas Lodge, Richard Lynch, William Smith, and Bartholomew Griffin. It consists of 3 quatrains rhyming ABAB, CD, EF, and concluding with a rhymed couplet GG. The final 6 lines of a sonnet, even though written in Shakespearean form, can become its sestet, and Shakespeare often seemed to think of his sonnets in terms of the Italian division, including the dramatic or rhetorical relationship of octave to sestet. The text of Shakespeare's sonnets, generally considered to be definitive, is that of the 1609 edition, which was published by Thomas Thorpe. Thorpe's edition, titled Shakespeare's Sonnets Never Before Imprinted, is referred to today as the Quarto, and is the basis for all modern texts of the sonnets. Though a second edition of Shakespeare's sonnets was brought out by John Benson in 1640, it was a pirated edition of the sonnets. Benson's version was not a carefully edited duplicate copy of the Quarto. The belief that the first 126 sonnets are addressed to a man and that the rest are addressed to a woman has become the prevailing contemporary view. In addition, a majority of the modern critics remain sufficiently satisfied with the Thorpe's 1609 ordering of those sonnets addressed to the young man, but most of them have serious reservations about the second group addressed to the woman. Another controversy surrounding the sonnets is the dedication at the beginning of the Thorpe's 1609 edition, addressed to Mr. W. H. The dedication has led to a series of conjectures as to the identity of this person. The 2 leading candidates are Henry Risley, 3rd Earl of Southampton, and William Herbert, 3rd Earl of Pembroke. The other contender for the object of this dedication is William Herbert, Earl of Pembroke. Shakespeare dedicated the first folio of his works, published in 1623, to Pembroke and Pembroke's brother Philip. Pembroke was wealthy, notorious for his sexual exploits, but adverse to marriage, and a patron of literary men. Critics who believe that Mary Fitton, one of Queen Elizabeth's maids of honour, was the Dark Lady of the sonnets 12 to 54, are particularly convinced that Pembroke is Mr. W.H., for Pembroke had an affair with Fitton, who bore him a child out of wedlock. This extramarital affair is considered to parallel too closely the sexual relationship in the sonnets to be mere coincidence. In essence, this sonnet is a love poem that adheres to Elizabethan conventions. It carries the substance of all love poetry, where the lover seeks for the right image to convey the subject's beauty. It opens with a rhetorical question: shall I compare thee to a summer's day? The summer invariably brings into the mind the image of the sun, which is not conventionally used to describe feminine charm. Therefore, it becomes apparent once more that Shakespeare is taking as his good angel not as Laura, but a young man. Yet he introduces an idealism equal to that of Dante and Plutarch. The rhetorical question, however, is nullified in the very next time: thou wert more lovely and more temperate, to focus exclusively of the beauty of the object of love. The declaration affords a tribute to both the physical and the spiritual aspects of the subject in question. Physical aspect is indicated by the word lovely, and the spiritual aspect is pointed out by the word temperate. The word moderate indicates a complement that cancels out all the extremes and thus adds to the suave grace of the poem. But then, in the third line, the rough winds brings in a jarring note which seems not to be a part of the beautiful scheme of things. It is a metaphor of either external circumstantial disturbances or subtle psychological shifts that can seriously destabilize the relation between the narrator and his love, which is still at a nascent stage. The darling birds of May, which the rough winds do shake, immediately reminds us of Keats's Ode to Nightingale. Mid May's eldest child, the coming mask rose, full of dewy wine. This image of often spoiled spring blossom hints at early death or young love blighted. The fourth line suggests summer's loophole: it has only a temporary and too brief tenancy, or lease. The last word of this line, date, apart from showing the narrator's consciousness of the progress of time, may also have a resonance of death. Thus, each of the natural elements that are employed as images in the first quatrain share a common feature: they are time-bound. Narrator's fear regarding the changed circumstances is clearly voiced in the second quatrain. The sun, or the eye of heaven, is said to be sometimes too hot, and sometimes is his gold complexion dimmed, obviously by the intruding clouds. The two extremes in nature stand in sharp contrast to the fair friend's temperate beauty. The vacillation of phenomenal beauty, however, may stand as a metaphor of transience of happiness. In the next line, the poet, while playing with the word fair, and every fair from fair sometimes declines, the poet asserts that all beautiful objects are bound to fall from the ideal realm of beauty. The last line of this quatrain suggests the cause of such decline: chance or nature's changing course. The word chance may indicate unfortunate accident, but nature's changing course signifies Shakespeare's cosmic view that he borrowed from Ovid's Metamorphoses. In the third quatrain, the poet deliberately detaches himself from the actual seasonal context and concentrates on the conceptual summer, the eternal summer, in which the seasonal drawbacks are not brought along. Line 9 does actually counter line 7 and line 4. Again, the very word possession sharply contradicts the word lease appearing in the fourth line of the sonnet. The third line of the third quatrain, that is line number 11, in its proclamation, "Nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade," shows an interesting verbal parallel as pointed out by W. G. Ingram and Theodore Redpath with Antony and Cleopatra. Now boast thee, death, in thy possession lies a less unparalleled. Death has been associated with darkness and shade also in Sam's The Valley of the Shadow of Death. As one expects in Shakespeare's sonnets, the proposition that the poet sets up in the first 8 lines, that all nature is subject to imperfection, is now contrasted in these next 4 lines beginning with "but." Although beauty naturally declines at some point, and every fair from fair sometime declines, the youth's beauty will not. His unchanging appearance is atypical of nature's steady progression. Even death is impotent against the youth's beauty. A summer's day is itself full of meanings, both lovely and ominous. It represents the season of growth, fertility, flowers, love, when the days are not only luxurious in themselves, but at their longest of all the seasons of the year. But that fact itself reminds us of a single day's brevity. No matter how long it lasts by count of daylight hours, we are already made conscious of the portents of decline and imperfection that are inevitably to follow. The couplet validates and reasserts the idea of alternative way to immortality. The eternal lines that will perpetuate the object of love may suggest the line of progenies, of the lines of the sonnet itself. The final resolution is reached in the ultimate line. The adjective "this" here presumably denotes the eternal lines of the poem itself. The poetry therefore gives life to its subject of concern. The phrase "so long lives this" stretches future indefinite extent, an exaggeration signifying the poetic effort to dequantify time. Thus, with the couplets, the sonnet becomes a poem about itself. In the cause-effect relation, the poet is established as the primary factor, since he breathes life in the object of his love and his poetry. This is certainly an exaltation or celebration of the power of artist or creativity. Yet the artist requires the beauty and the feeling for beauty, that is love, to compose poetry. We may almost derive a syllogistic relation from this. Poetry defies time, and it is not possible for itself to exist without love and beauty. So, in an indirect way, love and beauty comes to triumph over time. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Please share and subscribe. Please like my video. It's an honest request to all of you. Thank you. Thanks a lot.